Yo, welcome to another episode of the Bjj Goons podcast. I'm your host, Tim, the Mushmaster Spriggs, and with me, as always, every week is.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's No Nico Ball. Unfortunately, Nico in her house again, getting over a cold, but it's whatever.
Yeah, we wanted to play it safe here. I'm training for different things, and we want to be safe. We want to be good citizens and not make anybody sick. So we are not in the same place right now. I mean, I am. I'm in the BJJ Goon studio. Yeah, as you can see behind me are the boxes of gear, the generous donations. So it's a little bit different today. I have a brand new setup on the desk right now. So I got the soundboard here. I have a second monitor. Nico helped me out. I'm so happy. Like, I'm actually learning how to be a producer. However, we definitely need a intern. We need a BJJ Goons intern.
Facts. It's a little bit hard. I think like today was a good learning experience as we see like people talk about like specialized knowledge and things like that, and I normally like take the soundboard that we use because I produce some other stuff, so like I'll take it back and forth. So this time I left the soundboard at Tim's house because I know he had some other stuff that he wanted to film and just to play around with it. But I didn't take into consideration that on top of actually having the soundboard, there was like some other stuff that goes in on the behind the scenes of the production, like the programs that we use to actually record the podcast, the setup inside of the program, and just like the technical setup, like using dual monitors or multiple monitors. So these are all things that like I know and I do every day, not only to produce stuff, but like as a teacher. So it was just interesting to see like the learning experience of like, oh yeah, these are things that other people have to learn and you have to set them up.
I think that the way things have been going the last year and some change, there were a lot of negatives. However, we've been able to turn negatives into positives. And I think it's just if you do the right things long enough, the universe will conspire. And although at a moment things will be a disadvantage or be a negative, if you grind it out, eventually things are just going to line up and go your way. I know that sounds really corny because for the longest time when people said that, I thought it was just malarkey, typical BS spoken from people that are rich or important or things always went their way. But so far, so great. And I think this is great. And I will say this a little behind the scenes inside baseball. I definitely want a soundboard. It's expensive, but I definitely want a soundboard. And I kind of want to keep this setup, get the green screen behind me. And like this setup right now is perfect for when I do my match breakdowns or when I'm doing my game plans for people because man, like the two monitor setup is just so great. I'm sorry, I'm just geeking out right now.
I
But
can't
go ahead.
like so just something like funny because I know I have a lot of friends that hit me up about like producing podcasts or stuff like this, or I know someone, I'm gonna call her out, Natalie. You know where Natalie has a soundboard. Have you used it yet, girl? Have you used it? I know she also has
Mm-mm.
a child. But just like the process of learning how to use some stuff, like I can't fathom like not having like to know how to use a dual monitor. And Tim has had this monitor at his house the whole time that we've never had to use until like last week when we filmed something that we weren't able to put out because we kind of like messed up on some things because we were doing two different new things at one time. We had an in studio guest for the first time, and then we were also bringing in somebody from Zoom. So these were two different things, and then the setup was very different. And to do that, it requires a dual monitor. Tim has had this monitor here the whole time, and then I'm like, yo, bring over the monitor. He's like, this joint don't work. I'm like, what do you mean you just got a monitor sitting there? Like you don't use that thing? Like, cause I'm on a computer all the time. Like, so like I can use my TV as a dual monitor from in my room. I have a dual monitor down there at the high style studio. I have two extra monitors, I have two full monitors. So like it's just funny, like to think it's like, wow, dual monitor. And setting it up on a PC was super hard actually.
I wouldn't say it's super hard, but it's very different from a MacBook. But like I said, if we had an intern, that would be great. And if we had all the equipment that we wanted, it'd be even better. But that costs money. So, in order to support the BJJ Goons movement, I need everybody to go to patreon.com/BJJ Goons and join on there. This past week, we put up a lot of content. We had our bonus episode where we talked about the Robert Drysdale controversy and ADCC Mo dissing him and my thoughts on the matter. We talked about the trip that Nico would have had if she was allowed to enter Brazil. And I talked a little bit about the trials and tribulations of being my own businessman and having people flake on you and all the drama that entails. And also, I would like to say that I have opened officially timspriggsbjj.com. If you're already a member of the Patreon, you know how I break down techniques. You see me show all types of moves, and I do even more of that at timspriggsbjj.com. Right now, I'm offering seminars, of course, in person and virtual private lessons, as well as match critiques where I break down your match in real time. I pause it, I take a little cursor and draw on it, and I give you actual real time feedback on the match that you sent me. And my specialty is the BJJ game plan flowchart, in which I watch all your footage as much as I can find. I look for the best techniques and positions that you have, and I start from the beginning of the match, which is like your best attacks in the beginning, whether you pull guard, whether you do takedowns, the grips you have, and I systematize your best jujitsu so it's easier for you to understand what's going to give you the most success, how to put them into sequences and chains of attacks. And so when you start drilling, it's easier to figure out what to drill because you get 20%. I'm sorry, you get 80% of your success or more from 20% of the techniques that you have. So go to timspriggsbjj.com, and I would like to shout out the sponsor that made that possible. It is Blue Edge Business Solutions. Don't forget to check out our friends at Blue Edge Business Solutions for all your digital marketing, web development, and graphic design needs. They can help you with anything from Facebook and Google ads to websites and landing pages. I mean, if you check out timspriggsbjj.com, it's the truth. So tell them that yours truly, Tim Spriggs, the Mushmaster, sent you and get a special discount. I mean, if you guys are listening and you want to become a jiu-jitsu businessman, go to Blue Edge. Nico?
You just dropped a whole like thing. Okay, I was like, wow, that was amazing. You said
Off
like I
top,
had
baby.
news to drop. Damn, no, I don't have no news to drop. But no, congratulations to you, Tim, though, because doing the whole website thing, building it all up, getting all the content, doing all that, that's definitely not easy. I know you've been working on it really hard, and then you came out promoting it awesome on Instagram because I always get on everybody, like whether it's Tim or people here in the US or people that I work with in Brazil, about how like they market things and like how it's important to brand and market yourself as an athlete. And like you definitely came out with some, like I knew about it right away. Like you didn't even tell me, I saw it on Instagram, so that was dope. So congratulations on that.
I got like booty pick numbers on that post. You know what I'm saying? Like the love was real, you know? It was all positivity, you know. I was very happy to see that people were responsive to it even if they might not have joined in on the timspriggsbjj.com movement. The fact that they took the time to like the post, to show love, it makes it very it makes it it's very rewarding because I think just the work we've been doing together, the way I've been grinding trying to make this all possible, it really shows just how all the hard work is paying off. And thanks to everybody that showed love. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, that's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah. So Nico, a lot of stuff has happened in the world of martial arts. A lot of stuff is going on, not just in the BJJ bubble. I mean, BJJ bubble has been kind of quiet. I'll say, it hasn't been too crazy. You know what I mean? But I will say, like, it's nuts. Did you watch the fight? Did you watch the last UFC card?
I missed the car because I was working. I was doing a photography event, but claro, I was about wrong language. Obviously, I had to catch the fight afterwards, the McGregor fight. Um, and all of the memes, like, because clearly I was on the podcast, like I was on the Instagram reposting all of those memes because I thought they were hilarious. But that was such a great fight, I think, because I'm Buddhist. So if you didn't know, like,
Mm-hmm.
that was like karma at its best. So
Mm.
it was just so beautiful. It was like the downfall of just like the cockiest and just the most irritating fighter. Um, so I thought it was awesome.
I am not Buddhist, but I do feel as though the universe is a being in and of itself, and it can humble you. I don't know if it has malintent for certain
It
people.
it did not humble him, it hurt him, but like,
Okay, it hurt him. It can humble you if you are self aware. Let's
if
just
you're
put
a
it like
normal
that.
person,
If you're a normal person that's not off cocaine, it can humble
is
you.
he on
Or,
cocaine too?
okay, so I'm going to get to that in a minute because one of the bullet points in like this whole episode is going to be about that. But
Yo, the outline says rock bottom, not that he was smoking rock.
I mean, my boy told me this, and matter of fact, Pabs was saying that too. I think he said that on last week's episode. He was talking about, because I mentioned that one of my friends says that he thinks at least 1 in 30 people smokes crack, and Pabs was like, "Yo, way more." And I wouldn't be surprised if Conor McGregor was smoking Ready Rock in the back before the fight, getting light. Uh,
Oh man.
but it is very. I'm not gonna say feels good, but I'm definitely relieved that this whole Conor McGregor thing is dying down because he kind of represents. You know what's interesting? His rise is similar to the rise of how like Trump went from just like a loudmouth guy that was on reality TV shows and was a failed businessman that bankrupted people and like ruined Coney Island. I mean, sorry, Atlantic City, and to the president. Like that kind of coincided with his rise to stardom. If we're thinking about it, just like how insane it was, and like how he represents someone that's just very loud and brash, and I mean he. Like Connor is good at what he does, but a lot of it is based on he has friends in high places, which made it so it's easy for him to get by, and then he has a
Yeah.
bunch of male groupies, and all of that is just very annoying to me.
Hmm.
Like
Like
his, go ahead.
I was gonna say we were talking about on the Patreon with Drysdale about like trolling and how it's just like a superficial attack. Like it has no depth to it. It has no intelligence to it. And that's exactly what they were saying. Like when he was on the ground with that intelligible mumble, it's like you have no value to add. Like, yeah, what happened was like maybe not your fault or his fault, but like you ain't take it well at all. Like you lost. Like
You just got to take the L. Whether you win by an inch or win by a mile, a win's a win, and the same says for a loss. And I'm kind of relieved that the emperor, everyone's laughing at the emperor because he's naked now. Because now it's like, okay, all the talk, all the antics, it's not going to help you now because you finally had to fight someone that's tough and the train moved on without you. And I think that's the real moral of the story. Not that there's going to be karma for you, because to be quite frank, most of the time, I think when bad people do bad things, but they have enough power, they never really get their comeuppance. It's kind of good in fighting because eventually we all lose. But I think the real moral of the story is that the train doesn't stop. When Connor was on the up and up, when he was on the grind, when he's going up in the rankings, whether he got an easy road or not, he was training hard and he rose to the occasion. But now, once he got the bag and once he said, oh, well, it's not about winning anymore, it's about getting eyes on me. I already won the title. I've I got the double belt. I'm the champ, and I know deep down that in order to be the top guy, I have to continue to grind, and chances are I'm not going to be unscathed anymore. He went and got the Floyd Mayweather fight. At that point, win or lose, He won. There was no point for him to come back unless he needed the money. And now he's just been goofing off. He's been doing antics, but it's obvious from his skill development that he hasn't been training it hard anymore, or he hasn't developed the skills necessary to stay on top. And now there's somebody that was on the train this whole time. They had to go through the murderer's row to get there. They didn't have the boss behind them. They didn't have a country behind them. That person is Dustin Poirier. And I see it in jujitsu, and it's kind of like I would liken it kind of to when I said like the Rule Tolos will eventually surpass everyone right now, like a Craig Jones type. And I was like, oh, that match is close. And now the train's moving, these guys are improving. Same thing goes for Dustin Poirier. Dustin lost to Conor. So at that point, back in 2014, 2015, Conor was the better fighter. Dustin stayed on the train. He's like, okay, 145 isn't for me. I'm going to 155. My boxing isn't sharp enough. Let me move up. My grappling isn't strong enough. Let me get better. My wrestling isn't good enough to put him down. Let me continue. And then we just see it.
Yeah.
Dustin's going up. Connor's staying at the same place. Not saying Connor isn't a great fighter, but now look at the rankings. I was looking at the rankings the other day. Unless which is highly likely that he's going to get protected again. But we don't know because he might not be as much of a draw. I mean, he'll be a draw, but him being a serious title contender, unless he gets gifted these opponents, like if we get more cowboy fights, he's not the best fighter anymore. You could argue he's not top 10 practically. And if you pay attention to world MMA, there's a bunch of hungry killers out there around that weight class that any given day, Connor's going to get smoked.
That's the problem because, like, once you're champion, like, you always have to be fighting like somebody is trying to take that away from you because obviously everybody else is hungry for what you have. But on the other end, like, you got to think of, like, all of the demands and everything that comes with it, like all of the promos that you're doing, all of the press stuff, like some of it required, some of it not. It's like very easy to let that go to your head and not to give Connor an excuse at all because other fighters before him have definitely navigated it a lot better. But the industry is not pushing for Connor to be a better fighter. The industry is pushing for Connor to throw more chairs.
And I think that is the master that he began to serve.
Clearly, like you think about Khabib. They wanted Khabib to do the same thing. Khabib was like, "This is my last fight, and I'm out." Like, no coach, no me. Like he had it. Like he knew. Like he had his goals. Like it's very important to like know like why you're in it for. It's very because most people that want to fight, like especially like people coming up that I've met in Brazil, like they're doing it one because it's their only career option. Like they're not going to college, they're not getting jobs. They see it as like getting in the UFC is like a career. So like they're trying to get paid. Um, and they're just hungry. I don't know. It's just like the financial opportunities in there. It's just makes people crazy. Makes people crazy.
And the ironic part to it is he didn't. No, it's not ironic. I think that halfway through his rise to the top, he knew what he had to do. And unfortunately, that's what the fight game has become. And you could argue that it's always been that way, but just the way I look at the UFC now, and it's been that for a while, it's like pro wrestling. It's more about the pageantry. It's not about who actually is the best fighter. It's about who has the best gimmick. And whether you like it or not, that's how it is. But in my eyes, man, is this really a game that you want to be playing? If you're an up and coming fighter, if you love the sport, yes, but you got to understand that's where it is now. Just the whole UFC just looks so bush league to me. And we can go into like the other rock bottom part about Connor, but just as an aside, and then we're going to get to it later. You are interviewing Connor after he gets his leg snapped. It's just so bush league to me.
They've
That's
been doing
like
that to everybody though. They've been interviewing people after they've gotten knocked out. It's like, why would you do that? Like they
exactly. No, I. It's not even. It's like the UFC makes MMA look not like a sport anymore.
I
It's
mean, I think
just
that's
like
almost every sport because that was like Naomi Osaka's issue. She was like I'm not about to parade around for you. Like it's just the level that they
mm,
do it. Definitely in MMA, it's a little bit different. Like I remember one time when I was in Rio talking to somebody from Jordan, and he was amazing, like in jujitsu, and he could have transitioned into MMA flawlessly. I was like, why don't you want to do it? And he was like, that's not a sport. They put you to fight like animals under bright lights. Like, and that was his description of MMA compared to jiu-jitsu. And it's like I could kind of see that like and relate to that, especially with the way that people are marketing things now. And not just MMA, like boxing, like what the look at Jake Paul and like all of that. Like, you know,
it is like human cockfighting. John McCain was right, and I'll never say that 99.9% of the time, but he was right. They've turned it into human cockfighting on, and it's kind of like a weird Americana spectacle, and it just makes me feel dirty watching that because they're doing that to a guy that was at once considered their golden boy, and they don't show them the human decency to be like, man, this guy's leg got snapped in half. Because if that happens in football, they're not interviewing them; they are rushing them to the hospital, and it's very unfortunate.
yeah.
Now, let's not be so dark and be a little bit silly and a little bit funny. Is this rock bottom for Conor McGregor? Is this the end, or is this just the beginning of the end? What are your thoughts?
Um, I mean, even Anderson Silva's still fighting. Like he's gonna have as many opportunities as he can create media hype for them. Like I definitely think he's got the leverage to stay in the game for a while, even if like the skill, the results, the popularity, like he makes waves and he creates drama. And I think that's on top of being a good fighter, even if you're not like progressing, or, like, even though we'd like to see more in the fighting, like he's doing like the showmanship. And I think that's unfortunately going to keep him in.
As far as a fighting career, I think he'll always have a fighting career. I think that he'll always have a spot. But I will say, as far as his life, he's on the Mike Tyson trajectory. Have you read The Undisputed Truth?
No.
Okay, so I'll let you borrow it. I read Mike Tyson's book, and this just kind of reminds me of Mike Tyson because, and you see it in other aspects of life, like pro wrestlers, they do that a lot. Like if you start getting into street fights and you got millions of dollars in the bank, if you just start acting erratic like that, that's cokehead behavior. He's doing cokehead behavior.
You did say we were getting back to the coke allegations. There we go. Way to wrap it around, Tim. Way to wrap it around.
But it's cokehead behavior. You throw a dolly through a window at a fighter that you're not fighting. It's cokehead behavior. You punch an old man in the bar because he doesn't want to drink a shot with you. That's cokehead behavior.
How do we distinguish cokehead behavior from roid rage?
I think they're hand in hand, but I just get cokehead vibes from Conor McGregor, man. It just feels as though the guy snorts coke or he smokes Ready Rocks. Like, come to the Tim Spriggs crack dispensary in, in, in Oregon. Is that the state, right? I'm trying to remember what we were talking about last week as far as the crack dispensary and where we could locate it. Wherever state it was that they legalized or decriminalized drugs, he should come there. I'll sponsor him. In all seriousness,
Why are you promoting him to do crack?
I mean, he's got the money. Who cares? He's rich. He'll be all right for now, unless he loses all the money. Like, that's another thing, too. Is he really got that kind of money? Like, why are you fighting?
Does he? I don't know. Like you got to think like
People
an
say it.
entourage can be very expensive. It's like I always wonder what people are doing like with their money and stuff like that.
He could be burning through it. I mean, cocaine is expensive out here.
Cocaine is very expensive. But you got
And
to think at that level he's probably getting free cocaine.
and another thing too, like you gotta be on something to be that crazy after you break your leg and just that aggressive. He threatened to kill his wife. He started to kill Dustin Poirier and his wife, and I think he threatened his kids on Twitter. and threatened to kill them in their sleep. Like, bro, what is wrong with you? Your leg just got snapped in half. Like, what are you gonna do now? Like, you're not gonna be able to hurt him. You're gonna have to probably try to pay somebody to do it, but then that'd be foolish. You'd go to prison. But this is what happens when you let somebody get away with so much. He's not had to face any kind of consequences, which is, I don't know if this is rock bottom, but this can lead to a continuation down a very dark road because he has money, which for most people, the kind of money that people say that he has is virtually a blank check. So he has an infinite amount of money for the average person. It looks like he has cokehead behavior, and it doesn't look as though anyone in his life is telling him no. I mean, even his own coach is making excuses for him after the fight. He's trying to say, oh, he had little fractures in his leg before. Okay, let me tell you something. If you're kicking shit all the time, it's natural for you to have many micro fractures. I mean, you did traditional martial arts, right, Nico?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
when you're hitting the makiwari board or you're kicking bads, that adds little micro fractures into your bones. So technically, everyone has micro fractures in their body somewhere if you're doing martial arts. I mean, I definitely have something going on in all my joints.
A makawari bag is like, if you think of like a wave master that's on the ground, it's similar to that, but it's like a with rope wrapped around it. So instead of kicking a tree, you're kicking like something that's very hard, and it's supposed to strengthen your shins. And that's something you do if you do any kind of sport where you're actually kicking. You're supposed to kill the nerves that are in your shins by doing stuff like that.
Yeah, and it's just I, this can be very interesting. The downward spiral of Conor McGregor will be very entertaining to me.
I think you're correct though, Tim. I'm seeing like Lindsay Lohan in his future, a male version of Lindsay Lohan.
Wow, that's really dark.
Yeah, it just popped up on social medias the other week, and I have had some sick leave because of this cold that I have. So I was like going down the Lindsay Lohan tunnel, and it was a lot of money, it was a lot of access, it was a lot of drugs, it was a lot of Paris Hilton right there, and he's right there with the fuckboy Dylan Dennis. So if you're close to Conor McGregor, like if you're one of his friends, just try to reach out, see if he's okay, see if he needs anything.
They're not. He's not going to listen to them. He's so rich that his friends are probably around him. Like, I mean, I don't want to not be friends with this guy. It's Conor McGregor. Like, he probably is like paying my rent or like he's just giving me money or just perks. Have you ever been around a really rich person, Nico? Like really rich, like that level of rich or wealth, or somebody that's just
Yeah,
like, oh, this motherfucker got some money. Like he got money.
kind of, a little bit, not too much, but yeah.
So now imagine being friends with them and they're just like, hey man, you want to hang out this weekend? Yeah, cool. All right, we're going to my beach house. What do I bring? Don't worry about it. I got you. Like that kind of money, right? Like
You
you
have
want the
friends like
party
that?
because the party's over for everyone around him if he says like, I'm changing my life, or the party's over if they're like, you can't tell me what to do. Screw you. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a problem. Da 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 da. It's gonna be very Lindsay Lohan, Britney Spears type crazy downfall, you know.
Somebody needs that conservatorship.
Yeah. So I promise to take this back to taking the hard road, fighter pay, and being a complete train wreck. Next up, we're talking about Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley.
Yo, if we made a bet, would you get my name tattooed on you?
No,
Why not? You don't
because
think you think
everyone already thinks we're screwing around. Like I don't want to add to the rumor. No.
one second.
No way.
I'm
No.
about
No, we can't do that, Nico. Just so GP, like, no. Because then what if I get married, which is highly unlikely, but if I get married, my future wife, like, Nico, what? Who's Nico? What is going on
I
here?
know.
Or
I have
like,
these moments
hopefully,
all the
like we're
time.
super rich podcasters, and they're like, oh, I always knew something was going on between you two. Funny
Mm-mm.
story, by the way. This podcast is gonna last forever. I had an ex hit me up, and she's like,
Recently?
I have a stupid question. Is that okay? I'm like, oh God. this is gonna be very you know what I'm saying? Like if someone asks you like I have a question, like
And from your ex?
yeah, I'm like, uh-oh. Like my eyes are as wide as silver dollars. Like, oh no. Um, but she's like, are you and Nico a thing? I'm like, whew. That was my first like, oh, okay, cool. Like I don't have any kids out here or anything. Oh thank God. Like, oh, I gotta go to the clinic. But also, I was like, why does everyone think we're fooling around? So, no, Nico, I will not get your name tatted on me if I
That
lose a
wasn't
bet.
like, what? Do you think Tyrone and Jake are sleeping with each other? That's the excuse that you need to bust out. I'm not pulling this out of thin air. I'm
I
like,
know.
let's
I
be
was
like
gonna
the greats,
segue
but
back to
yeah.
that, but I was just,
That is so funny. But I posted a picture from What the Fuck Media Studios, which is where I went to do the consultation. And it's owned by like Alex Media, who produces like Flagrant 2 and Andrew Schultz stuff, and Wheezy What the Fuck, that has Horrible Decisions, which is a podcast I listen to all the time. She's actually in DC. So like as soon as we like finish this, I'm gonna go be out and go see her. But like I posted a picture of them, like because they own the studio together.
mhm.
Um, and somebody was like, "Yo, I thought that was you and Tim." I was like, "No, but soon," because they have this promo video for the studio where they're out in New York in like these fur coats, and then they're eating
uh,
like McDonald's. And I was like, "But soon that's gonna be me and Tim with the fur coats. Just wait, just
oh
wait. We ain't
yeah.
stuck in, but yeah, we gonna be out here with them fur coats, owning shit."
Yeah, I mean, we're almost there. Like, I think we're like a few months away from actually being able to like run a studio and be able to do it. But we definitely need an intern. What are your thoughts on the fight, though?
I
Overall,
think
just the situation, the way that over the course of the last year and a half, this guy, Jake Paul, has taken over boxing and whatnot.
I think Jake Paul taking over boxing is kind of a joke. Like he is 3-0, so he's like a little baby. Boxers historically have hundreds of fights, so he might be good. But it's like a white belt. It's like watching a white belt. And I want to see the black belts.
Mm.
As with Tyron Woodley crossing over, again, like I would like to see fights that are based on skill and like the development of it. So to see two new fighters get so much attention to be fighting for belt and stuff like that, I think it's kind of a mockery. But I do respect the fact that Woodley, whatever. Woodley does really want to switch over and really focus on boxing. He's not just doing this to take the Jake Paul fight and do the social media thing. Like he really wants to make that switch over and focus on boxing. He's enjoying the training, he's enjoying the discipline of boxing, and of course like the new pay grade that comes along with it, the opportunities. Like in these crossovers, on top of like the social media hype and the things like, oh, we're gonna make a bet about tattoos, and like why how many people got paid to write articles because like they want to make about tattoos. Like that's kind of ridiculous. I want to see more focus on the sport, but I do really want to see what Woodley does do in the future with boxing.
Mm. I had no idea that Tyron was taking it as seriously as he is, as apparent according to you.
I
I'm
mean, that's what he said, according to like what has been said on the news. So like that's what I'm saying. I want to see that. Like I would like to see that.
that would be interesting, and I would be happy for him. It's unfortunate that someone like Tyron Woodley, I wouldn't say forced, but it's definitely not a lateral move for him to go to boxing. Financially, potential, potentially, I mean, that's way more money than he can imagine in MMA. And that's a shame. And it goes back to, the whole Connor thing and the whole fighter pay thing. Like, it's not about who's the best sportsman in MMA anymore. It's who's the best showman. And I'd like to make the argument that sports has always been show business. Getting to the top isn't. Getting to the top of something sucks. It's hard. And then when you get to the top, it's about not who the best fighter is. It's not about who has the best skill. It's who can put on the best show. I think MMA fighter pay is a joke. And yeah, it kind of sucks that a YouTuber is one of the bigger names in boxing. And sadly, he has more of a say in his career than most boxers, if we're being honest about it. He's the needle mover. He has the control. He can do whatever he wants. He has the boxing world by the balls, whether we like to admit it or not, more than any other boxer except for Floyd Mayweather. There's a reason why his brother was able to get the fight with Floyd Mayweather. I mean, yeah, if he was a boxer, he wouldn't have made it to Floyd. The same way I could say that Conor wouldn't have made it to all those title fights if he wasn't a needle mover, if he wasn't a shit disturber, if he wasn't the talk of the town. And with that said, although that does suck and it kind of feels unfair, I will give him credit. He is putting a light on the fact that Dana White is using these guys like trained animals in a circus. He doesn't respect these fighters. They don't respect the fighters. No one in the industry really does. And it's sad because this is kind of like how boxing was a hundred or so years ago, where it was almost banned. You had to go onto, like, I don't know what those things are called, uh, like not a raft, but what are those things that people take from Staten Island to the rest of New York? What are those called?
A ferry.
A ferry. Like they'd have to go on like one of those barges or one of those ferries at boxing matches so they wouldn't get locked up. It's like outlaw mud show BS going on in the UFC. But the fact is, it's millions of dollars, potentially billions of dollars, and there's no profit share with the athletes. And Dana White just talks down. He talks down about the fighters. He's like, Connor's leg is in two pieces, and he's already hyping up a next potential fight. He doesn't like the media. He treated Ariel Helwani like crap. So
I
these
mean, but
guys,
at the same time, like, there's got to be pushback. There's got to be resistance. Like,
yes,
if fighters are taking these contracts because they're so hyped, because they just want it, because they need the opportunity, but not demanding the respect, then nobody's going to give it to them. That's human nature. Like, anybody that, like, I know, like, any of the kids I work for will say, like, I will do it to you until you don't let me anymore. Like, like,
uh
so why would you expect Dana White to be any different? And, it's very hard. Like, you have to demand your rights.
and in a way, the guys that are doing the boxing are paving the way for them to do that. And I got to give Jake Paul credit. He calls Dana White out. He calls a spade a spade. And I agree with a lot of what he says. It's one of those things where you may hate the messenger, but you got to respect the message. And at this point, I can't even hate on Jake Paul anymore because I think about what I went through jiu-jitsu, and if I had a way that I could get to the top or get paid to fight guys that I knew I could beat, screw it. Why not? It's all a joke. If we're giving Conor McGregor top 5 rankings in MMA when obviously he's not a top 5 fighter, then the whole system is broken. It's all a joke. And, he's a jester. He's a trickster, like I say all the time. And if you're able to hustle the world and get paid doing it, more power to you, young man. I'm not going to clutch my pearls because there's way worse things going on in the world right now than this guy fighting guys and getting paid millions of dollars to do it. Good for him. Good for him. But yeah, I just think, oh, one more thing too I had in my notes.
Oh, one more.
Fighters and Dana White apologists have like a slave mentality. Like they are just like the worst. You know what I'm talking about? The fighters that are just like, oh, thank you so much, Dana. Thank you, Massa. Like, I just don't understand that mentality where, like, how are you going to dick ride Dana White? Like a groupie, like male groupies for Dana White. Like, how are you going to be like, well, they should be happy to have a job. They should be happy to be able to fight. I'm like, bro, like, that's the wrong mentality to have. That's
Oh, some wisdom that I got from the Horrible Decisions podcast, and I think this was Patreon, so I'm dropping you some $5 wisdom.
oh,
Is like she was talking about a therapist, and like one thing is like you've been getting crumbs for so long that you finally got a slice and you were full, but what you deserve is the loaf.
wow. That's really deep, Nico. I agree. That's how you see. That's the type of content that you get from the Bjj Goons podcast, right
So
there.
if I get canceled by this bitch Mandy B for this, then y'all about to cash at me my rent.
All right, we're back up. I don't know where we left off, but I'm gonna go back and say that fighters that Dick ride Dana White, and Dana White apologists, just in general, have this slave mentality where they're just like, you know, Daddy Dana is the man, like, yes, master, whatever you say, and never stick up for themselves. Or just, I just don't understand, like, people just want to support a millionaire just because he's rich. Like, we talked about this on the Patreon last week. Like, just because someone has money and is successful, if they do horrible things or just like
Yeah.
just morally wrong, like, come on, like the way he treats fighters. If this was any other industry, people would be up in arms. And I think about this too. Like, people tend to agree with the rich and powerful people when it's not them that are under their foot. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, if Dana White was
Yeah.
your
Of
boss, you would
course.
hate
Yeah.
that shit. But for some reason, you don't pitch bail to the employees of the UFC just because, for whatever reason, you feel as though they don't deserve the same grace that you would want at your job. It's very fucked up. Very messed up. And that's all I had to say. See, we're probably gonna get canceled for saying slave mentality, but it's true. That is a very slavish mentality. If I'm wrong, Nico, tell me. But like, it's very much like, like, yes, a
No, that's very
boss,
true. It's
whatever
like
you say.
a lot of people feel like just like if you support the person or if you're in that room with the person, like that's somehow gonna rub off with you, on you. Like, but instead of calling them out on their bullshit, like it's just sad to see that kind of mentality in people. But you're 100% correct. And we see the same mentality with the next topic that you have, which is a damn shame.
Oh, really? Oh, is this about that BJJ Fanatics Instagram post?
Yeah.
Can you describe what it is to the people listening or watching at home?
So basically, what they did was they took a picture of the Colombian protesters being
Oh,
hosed down by the police and made a reference to them cutting prices on BJJ tutorials.
I didn't
And
know it
then
was
I
from
didn't,
Colombia.
yeah. So like, and we're in this year of civil unrest, of like dealing with this trauma, of seeing so many people murdered, and this company primarily, like, I mean, they have one Brazilian partner, but I guess a white Brazilian partner. Like, this company has the insensitive mindset to make a post like that. Okay, cool. Yeah, we all want discounts on tutorials because nobody can afford that shit. We all bootleg that shit. But
Hmm.
to take something that was so culturally insensitive, um, was just kind of fucked up. And then, like, I didn't see the post. I was informed of the post by, like, anytime some social injustice happens. And like the
Hmm.
one thing that they mentioned was like in the comments, just the uniformity of everything, of everybody that just was laughing. And like there's emoji, everybody just a laughing emoji. And then anybody that supported the post, like BJJ Fanatics was going and putting like a laughing emoji under it. So, it definitely does seem like, it was done intentionally. And even if it wasn't done intentionally, like again, we're in a point where like you don't really have an excuse. Like you should have known what it was or rectified it, but people are just like, so yeah, it's just a shame. It's like a real shame. I went down and saw like some people that we know, well, putting those comments on the post. So
uh, I think that the laughing emojis are like when someone drops a really bad joke and they laugh at their own joke to cover up the fact that it's a bad joke. And they probably petition their friends to say, hey, man, like, I don't want to get canceled or I don't want to get, kirked out on or I don't want to look like a jerk. So can you put a laughing emoji under this for me? But then there's a lot of people that think that stuff is cool and it's funny. And, a sad aspect of this is that I didn't know what country that post was from. I thought it
yeah,
was one of the, protests
no,
from
and
last
Colombia
year.
is currently
It's
oh,
currently, so they decided this is a, BJJ Fanatics is a primarily American company. Like, they market a lot of their stuff in the States, correct?
Bernardo Faria is their partner. I don't know who the American is. To me, BJJ Fanatics is Bernardo Faria. So, like,
So he's not even from Colombia and he's just
he's
putting up
Brazilian.
stuff like, so I guess like, like their team fascist over there. I don't really know. But it's just like, and another thing too, like, I saw it and I was like, this ad is just like you don't really get a response from me, like as an ad as like it's clever. It's like, why would you pick that? Like you thought this was funny? Like people getting sprayed with water hoses? Like what's next, guys? Like you're gonna put up videos of the civil rights movement for black people in the 50s and 60s and saying, showing videos of little kids getting bitten by German shepherds and being like, we take a bite out of prices for you guys at BJJ Fanatics. Like what's next, guys? Like you're gonna put up a picture of somebody getting lynched and say, hey, we won't leave you hanging here at BJJ Fanatics. Like come to our site and get 40% off the next BJJ instructional you get. Like I just don't understand the correlation. Like how is that good marketing? Like obviously they need to get a professional. Maybe.
I mean, I think the problem is that people don't see it as good marketing. People see it, or our community sees it as intentional. Like, so we're not looking at it as a fuck up. We're looking at it as like an outright attack, a blatant fuck you. Like, that's how it's seen. And every single laugh isn't, we don't see it as a laugh of somebody like, oh, try to like laugh this off. We see that as an agreement. Like,
It's
just
just
to be clear on some people and how they feel about that. Like,
it's just very disturbing that someone would go out of their
it's
way.
absolutely disturbing, and it is disturbing. And disturbing isn't just a fucking adjective. It's not. It's a feeling that you wake up with in the morning that breaks you down, and then you have to try to get up and go out of your house. So that's why it's like it's not even fucking funny, not even slightly. It's like it's saying like, oh, you don't know what it is. Like people are dying in Colombia, like they're being hosed down. Have you ever been hit with a water hose?
No. Interesting story about that though. When I was a kid, my dad took me to a self car wash, and like he's like, all right, boys, because I was with my cousin at the time. He's like my brother. He's like, boys, do not play with this water hose. You can get seriously hurt. I was like, really, Dad? It's just a water hose. And it's like, remember how we showed you the civil rights protests and how they got sprayed with hoses, right? It's like, yeah, I thought they just got like swept off the road or whatever. Like, no, you could seriously get hurt, like break the skin, like really, really get hurt. Or I don't know if you can break someone's bones with it, but you flipping a
You can
slide.
like if you hose somebody down, you're going to create a horde. Like you're going to create people running away. It only takes one person to fall and get trampled and died.
Yeah. Needless to say,
Like
I learned that at an early age, and then ever since then, I think about that. And I'm like, damn, like, and that's a whole. It's not like a self car wash is like a little hose. Imagine a full fucking hose, like a real water hose, and they think it's funny. So yeah, needless to say, I'm gonna continue to bootleg BJJ Fanatics. I'm really glad that I did not put any instructionals with them.
I just
Um,
filmed one.
huh?
I literally just filmed one.
Oh,
I
it's
feel really
okay.
bad, but I got paid and then I'm just gonna slide out. Like I didn't see them. I did it, but whatever.
Use it to
Um,
fund the revolution. That's what
I
you need to
will.
do as penance.
I mean, that's what I do with all of my money. First off, my money this year is going to me because I've been funding the revolution for the last 7 years. So, like Wayno said, not everybody can fucking sit with me anymore. I'm going first class. Y'all can go wherever your work ethic has gotten you up to. That's how I feel about that.
Well, someone's going to take that line. I've been funding the revolution. And now we're on a watch list if we're not already on one.
I mean, I probably already on one if you didn't realize that. But anyway, my last note on that I want to say is like I mean, people shouldn't take that lightly. And I know a lot of people will and they'll see it, but like those things can be very upsetting to people. And like, I know I get very upset and I've gone through a lot of anxiety in these months. And I just want to give a shout out to like some people that will send messages, about the podcast in my DMs.
Hmm.
And like, I don't know if you get them too, Tim, because it was in my personal one. Just like, people like I've woken up upset to see these messages about how much the podcast means to them, about how much people in Henzo territory, in New Jersey, in New York, that didn't have places to go to train and they didn't, think there was a space for them in the community, and how listening to our interview with Bones, showed them that there was like opportunities. So like I just like, shout out to all of our supporters, like that are not only just paying the Patreon, but I'm just glad that we could be here to like show people that there are like alternative places, because like I've never had that experience too much of having to deal with a lot of these racist people. I did start training in Henzo's, but then I went to Brazil, so I was always surrounded by like a good tribe. And I know a lot of people aren't that fortunate, but like if you keep searching, like you'll definitely find a better place or a better space for you.
That's what's up. It's always good to get fan mail. You know.
It always is. It makes me feel so good. Like all the times that you don't get paid or like all this shit. Like we're filming right now 3 hours late, and like we're 3 hours late because we've been working on this shit. It's not always easy. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's fun, but we're just really happy that like you guys really connect with what we're saying.
Yeah. It's always good to get love and support. And, thanks for riding with us for so long. Like this iteration of the BJJ Goons podcast has been around for, I believe, a year, maybe. I gotta go back
Yeah,
in
we
the.
started like March. Like yeah.
We didn't start March of last year. It was like
We was like in the 80s. I don't know. You gotta check. We went through like numbers.
no, it wasn't just 80s because
Oh yeah, sure.
way more. But yeah, thanks to everybody. Hopefully I get more fan mail. Typically, what I get in my DMs is people wanting free advice from me. I get Hotep messages. No, just about Hotep stuff. In my
Free
DMs
advice is hard.
typically.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Free advice is hard. Like now, like the reason why like we're filming late, like 3 hours late, is because like I don't know. There was just a lot of things that I do that I didn't realize was a process that Tim didn't know, like that communication or advice or like different aspects. Because you see it, it's like when you see a technique, like a jujitsu technique, like the beer and bolo, like might theoretically look easy, but it's hard as hell to do. Like
It's easy being this good. I mean, it's hard making it look this easy. What am I saying? I'm losing my mind now. But check this out, Nico. Where can we find you?
you can find me on Instagram at no new Nico. That's no underscore new underscore Nico. I'm always on the BJJ Goons Patreon. If you guys have any questions, make sure to leave questions on that joint. If you want help on some techniques, that's always option. Send the messages in on Patreon if you have any questions about traveling. And then we might also put out some content on like content, like because I am teaching Tim how to do some certain things, and I know people have been asking. So if we do get some requests, then we might put out some Patreon stuff for y'all. So yeah, make sure to follow me there.
Yes, you can find me at the Patreon at patreon.com. So that's BJJ Goons, like Nico was saying. I got a lot of techniques to show. I'd like to do breakdowns too. Visit me at timspriggsbjj.com. Competitive success, gold medals, gold belts, gold trophies are just a click away. I can be your virtual John Madden. I can break down your matches for you. I can give you a game plan in the form of a flow chart. And I can give you private lessons both in person and virtually. All of that is at timspriggsbjj.com. Also, catch me at timspriggsbjj on Facebook or Instagram. I'm usually on Instagram, like that's my main one. You can slide in my DMs for sure. But I don't give out free advice anymore, so you're gonna have to pay for that. From now on, if you ask me a question, I'm gonna say I am answering it on the Patreon, and I'm not being an asshole. But I hate this term "free game" because
Now
there's
this
no
is
such
something
thing
I
as free game. Because I paid a hefty price to get this game, and I'm gonna charge you. What was that, Nico?
I told you that like a year ago, like with the legacy. Like I'm very experienced at this. People love to talk to you about stuff, and it's like okay, some people want to do things like Rigo. If you listen to the podcast, he hit me up. He follows Today Kids Project. He's out in Rio right now. But like I have people that hit me up, what's the summer like in Rio? What's this like in Rio? But they never do anything. And really what they're doing is like they're taking away the time that I actually have to help people. So like
Yeah,
me
I
knowing that
remember.
experience, when Tim was telling me all these people are talking or they're promising me to do stuff, they're like, stop talking to them, Tim. Wait till they show you something. They give you a result. Like if not, they're just wasting your time. Like
I learned
that's
that.
another thing. And that's another thing. Like I've blocked. Like I have two people that work at Today Kids Project block because they text me all the time about stuff that they don't need to talk to me about. Like, and I've just really changed the way that people have access to me because people always come to me first, and like it's dragging on me. So I've just eliminated my access to me. And even Master Lloyd used to say that, like he's had mentors. He was like, "Yo, if you want your only means of communication to be facts, then a motherfucker's gonna have to find a fax machine to talk to you, and that's just how it's gonna be."
Yeah. So that separates who wants it and who doesn't. So, guys, this has been the BJJ Goons podcast. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Peace.